Hello and welcome to Talking Point here on WESN Contents Capital. I'm Keaton Shaw.
I'm sure Michael Small. Just another day in paradise, folks. Well, if you could believe that TNT is paradise. Is TNT a paradise, Keaton?
Of course TNT is a paradise. I think it's just the people that ruin it, but I think Transbig is still sweet. A bit more sweetness, but no. For those who suggest that Transbig is not a paradise, listen, we are very fortunate and we're very blessed in so many circumstances. It's just that oftentimes the words and actions of individuals, both within the senior public setting, and as the private citizen, well, that tends to ruin the paradise that TNT is.
I do wonder, like, we take it for granted, but I do wonder how many people in TNT realize that they have Caribbean islands that don't have mountains or hills, therefore don't have regular enough rainfall to have unsalted natural groundwater on a consistent enough basis that their islands are on. It's very different. It's a very different environment to what we have. Just the fact that we have that alone as a natural resource. Yes, we have water problems, but relatively speaking, our water problems is more how we distribute what we have. But in theory, we have enough water. It's little things like that other parts of the world, again, including other Caribbean islands, have to go through more hoops to figure out solutions, whereas for the most part, I don't think we need this Alcott. We just kind of have it, and potentially we won't necessarily need it moving forward outside of Point Lisas and the industrial uses for that water. So it's little things like that I think perhaps we take for granted. It's just an observation this morning.
Well, to answer your question, yes, I think TNT is a paradise as we get into your data review.
And of course, speaking about water, well, the Minister of Public Utilities, at least in one daily newspaper, he was both making an announcement, I believe. I think he was announcing the new e-utility platform for the services division of WASA. The whole point was there was a backlog. But then he went on to kind of maybe explain more. And this is a very interesting phenomenon because he was apparently pushing back. But what he was pushing back against was kind of what happened in the past. He's not necessarily dealing with anything, well, necessarily in the moment. Because, stop me if you've heard this before. You have a government service, somebody wants to make it more efficient, and allegedly the workers involved don't want to make it more efficient. And there's implications, or at least it's implied, that the backlog or the bottleneck was being taken advantage of. Basically, give me a little something to grease your wheels and we'll get your application pushed through. Meanwhile, the minister didn't just necessarily kind of push back against that sort of sentiment. He also said that after a new service committee was set up, certain journalists approached him with documents allegedly received from people in WASA calling the integrity of the board members into question. He said the ministry responded to the questions raised and what was supposed to be a bombshell report in a local daily newspaper disappeared. Right? Apparently he asked the reporter, did the person inside WASA who gave you that information tell you there were 5,000 applications locked away inside that division? Did they tell you that citizens are paying bribes to get approval? Did they tell you those 5,000 to 6,000 applications are costing the economy $4 billion in potential investments? Now, my thing is, I'm happy to hear this. I'm happy to hear strong assertive language on what, at least from one side, appears to be blatant corruption. But technically, all of these things happened in the past. Like, the timing of it is kind of after the fact. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about it. How relevant is it currently? What's being done about it?
Did you just say in the same sentence that you're happy about the assertive language, but you don't know how you feel about it?
overall, yes, I'm happy that he's taken an assertive stance. He's speaking out. And I think, remember, I think last year, at this point, I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, when we were expecting the minister to make announcements, right? But then all of a sudden it seemed like he couldn't speak, and the chairman of WASA, and there was a little bit of something in the media for about a week or two, and then everything hush hush, and then all of a sudden we heard nothing about WASA, and we were waiting, and we were waiting, and we were waiting. And to some extent we still are. But now, okay, I'm happy that maybe this is part of the reason why we didn't necessarily hear from you again. Things like this happen. It's bad that things like this happen. I'm happy if his account of the events are true. I'm happy with how he dealt with it. But it's kind of after the fact.
Are you happy with how he dealt with it? Because you yourself are stating that you're happy he dealt with it, but it's after the fact.
No, well, he's announcing. I would have preferred to hear about it then. You know, why the delay?
Because I don't know how he dealt with it.
Well,
so I can't say whether or not I'm happy with how he dealt with it, because I don't know how he dealt with it, just based off of the report. It's not surprising to me that something like this was taking place. It is rather surprising that the minister chose to announce it or to make it public at the launch of the e-service platform, because what it does is that it only gives greater publicity to the why it is we need this e-service platform.
That's more or less. That's putting it better with, you know, the timing of it. Like, okay, what you're saying is fine, but why are you telling us this exactly now?
However, I think this information, whilst still very much valid in the context of where WASA was as a company and potentially where WASA still is as a company, I'm not too concerned. I don't care about it, because guess what? If something has been done about it to try and resolve this issue, then I can judge the minister's timings, I can judge the minister's actions based off of what is to come following the launch of this new platform. So if I don't have to wait 6 months to a year to even 5 years to get my application for certain plumbing and water services approved, if I can get it in a timely manner, then, and it's not costing the authority $4 billion annually in potential investment, as alluded to by the honourable minister, then guess what? I could really care less. To me, the mere fact that it's solution-oriented is most important. If he were to come out a year ago and announce this to the public, I think it would have been good, but at the same time, what it would have allowed for is that it would put greater anxiety. What are you doing about it, Minister? What are you putting in place? What actions are being done? And I'll be very honest with you, I would have been one of those individuals on this particular platform to question the minister like that. There is a solution that has been implemented. Let's see if it works. Let's see if it's effective. You know, if not, then we can go back with our questions again.
My only thing is, it might seem as though, well, this is, again, assuming that his accounts are 100% accurate, it might seem as though, well, this is how it should be. You know, you see corruption, you put something in place to stamp it out. Maybe somebody in the media is overzealous. Or, well, the other thing is the implication as to what extent was the person in the media either overzealous and fell down the rabbit hole, or was to some extent friendly to the endeavor. Let me just put it that way. To what degree? But my concern is we don't necessarily see or hear scenarios like this play out quite like this. It more seems like, well, somebody is protecting their interests and an improvement to some government service doesn't actually go through, or it takes forever to go through. The fact that we're talking about something that might a year, that is relatively quick by government standards, or all things considered. So that's my concern. We should hear about more stories like this. This should be business as usual, but it's not. The unfortunate thing is, to me, it's actually a bit more of an exception rather than a norm.
I actually think that I'd like to hear more from the minister, more updates on the progress of the transformation of WASA. I hear the chairman of the Water and Sewage Authority making comments like, this is not the WASA of old, this is the new WASA. And I need clarification on precisely what you mean. Where are we with the transformation of the Water and Sewage Authority? And the minister has given that update last week, Friday, if I'm not mistaken. I spoke to him and he said, within the coming weeks, he will be making a further announcement as it pertains to the transformation of the executive arm of the Water and Sewage Authority. So look forward to that update.
Well, again, and it goes back to my one concern was the timing. Well, why announce what went on last year? Now, as you said, it makes the situation look better. You know, if you're kind of controlling the messaging, I don't always agree with how politicians control the messaging, but we'll have to wait and see. At least there is some progress. It's not like other situations where there is none. Moving on, this is more of a question I have. It's literally, that's what I titled it. Questions upon conferring silk. Because, well, the president's husband and I believe her brother, she had the, I guess you could say, honor, the privilege to confer on both of them, family members, the status of senior counsel. I believe it was yesterday that the ceremony took place. And of course, you know, some analysts are critical of it. Of course, the opposition is critical of it. And I do wonder to what extent should we be questioning it on the surface. Is it just because there's a familiar relationship that it should not be done no matter what the circumstances? And then more importantly, to what extent does the manner in which the opposition leader herself was awarded the status of senior counsel, does that come into play? Because I know it's not a direct comparison, but it's similar.
It is a similar comparison. You see, the thing is, when you are conferred senior counsel or silk status, it should be an honor that is bestowed upon you for your work as an attorney that you've done for a number of years here in Trinidad and Tobago. It should be an honor and it should be a privilege. It just shouldn't be something that is given to you. In the instance of the president actually having conferred it upon her husband and her brother, let's just have the understanding one time. She does not necessarily decide who is awarded silk.
Right.
Right. You know, attorneys actually put forward an application and to the Attorney General. The Attorney General then consults with the Prime Minister and the Chief Justice, and they actually nominates who should be awarded silk, and the president then takes that nomination list and, you know, presents the attorneys with this this prestigious award, well, status, that is. The precedent was set when the opposition leader awarded herself, as well as the then Attorney General Eleanor Logan senior counsel status. I thought that was quite hilarious and rather a joke, because Kamala Pasabi-Sessa hadn't been, she wasn't practicing law for a number of years when she had awarded that. But that was, I mean, come on, that's close to 12, 18 years ago.
Well, apparently the justification is because she served as Attorney General. This, I just want to make sure who said this. Anna Ramlungan said that it was apparently somewhat of a tradition that whoever serves as Attorney General is conferred silk, right?
Really? Because
that's what was reported way back when, in 2012.
By that logic, Faris Arawi should be given senior counsel status. So, but no, hold on.
Well, I want to get back to that.
Let's not take away from the story. First of all, congratulations to the 17 attorneys who were actually bestowed with this particular honor, and congratulations for the rewards for your hard work. And there might be some saying this morning, congratulations for the hard work that you did given your status of your friendly relations or professional relations with the state. All that being set aside, it does not look good as one of the first acts as President Christine Kanglu to award her husband and her brother senior counsel status. It really, really does not look good. Should she have done it? No, I don't think she should have done it. But I really don't think she should have.
I mean, I agree with you. It doesn't look good. But I guess on the Richter scale of political bacchanal, it doesn't register that much to me. At this point, it's kind of to be expected. And my one thing is, yes, the opposition coming out against it, I would say be careful, because if it is the fact of you conferring yourself or conferring somebody close to you, well, you more or less have a different version of that story. Yes, you could try to justify it that, okay, somebody with high public office was what he said, which includes the Attorney General and the Prime Minister. should be conferred senior counsel status. I don't know if I agree with that. Do I want to see the the former Attorney General be awarded senior counsel status just because he was the Attorney General? Given the fact that he had to consult with so many senior counsels, I'm not too sure if that's right. He acted more like a civilian elected official than a technical official. So why give him the honor just for that alone?
Well, honestly, I think the whole nomination process is skewed.
And should be changed.
I don't think attorneys should be nominating themselves. I do not think attorneys should be putting forward
their own name. No, that is true. That is true.
And I don't think that the Prime Minister should even be involved in recommending who is awarded a senior counsel status. You see, the thing is, what this does, you're saying it's not a big deal in terms of the Richter scale, and to a certain extent, all right, fair enough.
Because of past practice.
But it still is a big deal from Kamala Pasabi's sister, Anna Rowlands, to Colin Kangaloo and Christine Kangaloo's husband as well. This entire situation only goes to tell you that, listen, if you know the right people in the right places, then senior counsel status is no longer something that is bestowed upon you. Mm-hmm. Anybody can get senior counsel status.
I think that is the negative. That's the real negative. It's not that it's undermining it in a practical way and removing the objectivity and the independence of the law body, of the legal profession, but it is taking the status of senior counsel and kind of watering it down. Now, listen, the gentleman could be more than qualified. I have no opinion on them whether or not they're qualified legally or not, right? But the perception that it's not necessarily because of their qualifications or merit, but it's because of connections, it cannot be removed, which is why it's a catch-22. Like, what if they are technically deserving? You know, what else? What are they supposed to do? Is the opposition going to give them senior counsel status based on the current system? The system is bad, and yes, it kind of turns the whole senior counsel status as something that's more political than actually based on skill and merit in the legal profession.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have to take a break here on Talking Point. So when we return, we'll welcome our first guest for this edition of the program. Stay tuned.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
With society plagued by a host of issues, with debates surrounding our urgent concerns falling short, with questions of our future not always being answered.
The conversation continues. Join me, Kemuel Pascal, as the voice of the youth comes to life. We will confront the controversial topics of today's world to gain answers that are key for a better tomorrow. One and One with me, Kemuel Pascal. Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Only on WESN, Content Capital.
Although Trinidad and Tobago generally has a low occurrence of meningitis, it can lead to devastating complications which can be prevented if diagnosed early. Signs and the symptoms of meningitis, what would that look like?
This is not your little, I think the child feeling warm.
Not responding to Panadol at all.
Not responding to Panadol. The child is lethargic, the child is not drinking, the child is not eating, the child probably is going to be vomiting, the child is going to look very still, maybe breathing heavily, real sick child.
What's up, Doc? Every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, content capital.
North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival. Safe and sound, that's how we'll get you to the biggest North Coast Jazz ever. No hassle and no worries. Park your ride at the Queen's Park Savannah, hop on board a safe and secure shuttle with your $100 return fee, and that's it. Service begins at 10 a.m. through 1 p.m. and returns from festival grounds from 7 p.m. Park and ride, a $100 return fee, first come, first go shuttle service to festival grounds, Blashy shares. No hassle and no worries. North Coast Jazz, May 27th. Born here, played here. Tickets available at Crosby's, Extra Foods Endeavour, Shogunas Main Road, Sangre Grande, Arima, Grand Bazaar, Mart's Liquor Mart, Diego Martin, Kenny's Sports Outlets, Athletes by the Park, and WESN.
Welcome back to Talking Point, ladies and gentlemen. And this morning, we have a guest a little early today. Of course, it's Tuesdays. We like to talk about issues that affect the Sister Isle. And joining us is someone you might know under a different title, but today he is here just in his personal capacity as a cultural activist, and that is Mr. Rodney Pigott. Good morning, sir. How are you this morning?
Good morning, Sean. I am very well, and good morning, Keyshawn. How are you both doing this morning?
Doing well, sir. Good to see you.
Doing well, doing well. So, of course, we've spoken before about politics on the island, and recently things have become a little bit more heated between the executive of the THA and the executive of the cabinet, with the Prime Minister. The Chief Secretary has used some colorful language, to say the least, and I believe one newspaper reported saying, well, he had to put people in their place, so to speak. Of course, there have been other exchanges most recently with regards to quarrying in Tobago, with claims and counterclaims being made about who was given permission and who could do what, etc., etc. All in all, though, I do wonder if this is going to both impact the working relationship between the THA and the Parliament and the Legislature and Cabinet, as well as it will impact potentially autonomy moving forward. This is a topic my co-host spoke to Reginald Dumas about, and he had some concerns. He didn't necessarily speak too strongly with regards to disagreeing to Farley's stance, but the communication style, he is afraid, is not helping such efforts. Mr. Pigott, what do you make of that?
All right. Well, the colorful language that you refer to is symptomatic, in my opinion, of the overall climate of the nation state itself. That colorful language has been rippling through the cabinet between the government and the opposition. We hear it almost on a daily basis. We've heard in instances where the Prime Minister himself is saying to one cabinet member, meet me outside. And the constant exchanges, inter-party politics between the UNC and the PNM, where both you and I know is nothing but a lot of repugnant, colorful languages. So the chief secretary, while he's not correct in joining in that fray, many here in Tobago have simply said, well, that's the only language the prime minister may understand, because that is how he does carry on. So you see, what is really taking place is not necessarily something that has started in Tobago, but something that is symptomatic of a larger problem that we're not paying attention to. That civil society itself, both in Trinidad and Tobago, is not paying attention to, and we're not taking our rightful place as civil society, as the bosses, as the employers of the politicians in our government who should be our employees. We are allowing them to dictate the tone of the nation, and we should be checking them. The media should be used as a tool that civil society uses to communicate to the government, because if you write to them or call them on the phone, you're not going to get them. So the media should be a place where civil society can speak directly to the government and say, hey, we really don't like the tone and the manner in which you are conducting yourself. When was the last time you heard the UNC and the PNM came together and said, look, you know what? Look at this rising crime that's taking place in our country. Let us put aside our inter-party politics bickering and come together and solve this problem.
Mr. Pickett,
what you hear is UNC saying fire Hines, and then they're firing back at the UNC.
No, but I hear what you're suggesting.
Bickering is what the problem is.
I hear what you're suggesting, but contrary to that, isn't it that the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago support such behavior? Won't you make the argument that they actually appreciate that level of language, that approach by politicians, because they themselves practice it? It's not necessarily a politician setting the example, but politicians just following what they know the citizens will fall for.
Or at least enough of the citizens.
Right. So now that's like you saying in your home as a parent that because my child went to bounce in the door, cussing and carrying on, that I as the parent should now start to cuss and carry on. There has to be a balance, and it has to be someone that says, look, let us put the brakes on what is happening, because what is seriously unfolding in our country is literally tearing the country apart at the seams.
So then shouldn't Farley Augustine have been the one to actually set that example?
I mean,
say again?
Shouldn't Farley Augustine have been the one to set that example, given that he's perhaps the youngest politician or political leader that there is?
But also, I believe his support came... Go ahead.
Right. So as I stated, he was not correct. I'm not condoning his actions, his speech. I am saying that was completely out of order. But I don't want us to focus on him and say that's where the problem began. We have to now trace that back and say, look at what has been going on in our nation state from the very head. Dr. Aintu Springer said the other day on another show, and she's absolutely correct, that fish does rotten from the head. And our head have been in this state of inter-party politics, bickering, cussing each other on the main stage back and forth for quite some time. And this type of conversation where we're now looking to pull someone on the carpet for their language has not been taking place. So as soon as Farley speaks out and speaks as they have been speaking, now we want to raise up. We want the entire media now wants to raise up and say, hey, listen to what Farley said. But when did we ever hear this kind of conversation where the media said, hey, listen to what Dr. Rowley said. Hey, listen to what Kamala Prasad said. That is out of order, and so forth. When has that sort of conversation has been taking place? It has not.
Well, actually, not to toot our own horn, but this is a topic I like to bring up a lot. It frustrates my co-host when I do, because he gets upset when I show him the examples, or when he finds examples of his own of this speech, we break it down and we don't agree with it. So I could say that we are consistent. It's just that now the examples that are apparent come from the Chief Secretary and not necessarily as strongly from other parties involved. I don't necessarily know if the Prime Minister used equally as abrasive language in this. It hasn't been reported. That doesn't always mean that it hasn't happened. I will say this though, what makes it slightly worse in some respects is that expectations for the current THA executive, I think, were higher than the pre-existing political parties. And I do wonder, going back to what you said now, is it that we could hope for a change and we could hope for something new and we could hope for new blood to come in, but the pressures of the environment and the desires of what could just be the majority of voters with regards to what they respond to, could it now force people, especially people who don't have political experience, and that's technically what you want if you want change, it forces them to kind of resort and revert to the very same thing that we like to say, oh, but we don't like this from the PNM, we don't like this from the UNC. But it's literally just forcing all of the new blood to just act the same.
Exactly. And so that is exactly what I'm saying. This has been the tone in the nation for a very, very long time. And no one is putting the brakes on it. And a lot of this is due to the interpolitics, party politics that dominates the environment. Politics itself dominates the environment, and party politics are like gangs. So whereas you have gangs on the block, where you have this one wearing blue and that one wearing red, and the sort of gang warfare that goes on between them with the innocent citizens caught in the middle, is the same thing that has been going on with the party politics.
But the flip side though is, for those of us who did want to see something new and something better, I know you said that support has not necessarily waned for the executive over this sort of language, but wouldn't there be some members of the population who wanted to see something different, who would be disappointed by seeing more of the same? And I don't know if the PDP could stand out enough if they're literally just a different color of the same thing.
Well, I think we should all be disappointed, but I don't want this. What I'm saying is we're attempting to focus on a symptom, and we're not looking at a cause. We're not going to the cause, because the symptom is dramatic. The symptoms, they tend to raise temperatures, and the raising of temperatures raise eyeballs, and people tune in to see the bacchanal and to see what's going on, and so forth and so forth. And yes, that feeds into what's the media frenzy. Media tends to make a lot of money during the time that they have this sort of bacchanal going on, because it gets a lot of eyeballs. wesn appears to me, and has always appeared to me, and especially your show, have always appeared to be a show that is focused on going to the cause or looking to the cause. And so what I'm saying is, let us remind ourselves that we are one nation state. It is Trinidad and Tobago as a nation state. And if we begin to focus on that and not necessarily on the party politics, which dominates the space, then I think that the nation state can then steer itself out of the melee that it's currently in. And it does not seem to be doing that because party politics is so dominant in the space. That's really the issue. And let me also remind you, and I keep bringing this point up over and over again, and people like to just kind of overlook it, that even as far back as 1791, George Washington warned his nation of America to avoid party politics because it is dangerous. It is a dangerous and divisive beast. and we should avoid it. And if we do not if we're going to embrace it, we should at least put guardrails and constraints around it, which is what, of course, the United States and other larger nations have seemed to have done. They have put some guardrails around it, and even that, they find it difficult to contain this beast. What we have done here in Trinidad and Tobago is we have simply picked up this party politics, copy and pasted it into our environment without putting the necessary guardrails and constraints around it to protect ourselves from this wild beast running around in our living room, mashing up our china. And that is exactly what is taking place.
Mr. Pickett, final question, because we're more or less out of time. Do you think that such a paradigm shift is something that is easy to achieve?
I'm sorry, say again?
Do you believe that such a paradigm shift, the ideal stance of which you have taken and which you have approached situations with, do you think that is something that is easy to achieve given how society has evolved and is evolving?
It is not going to be easy. It is absolutely not going to be easy. Once you have a leech that has burrowed deeply into your skin, it is not going to be easy to remove it, but remove it you must. And in removing it, it will hurt, it will draw blood, but if you don't remove it, it's simply going to go further and further into your flesh and literally end up killing your entire body. Mm-hmm. So you really don't have a choice. If you want to progress, if you want to go ahead, we must remove it. We must put guardrails and constraints in place. We must look at our constitution that was simply something that was hurriedly put together. All of the elders testified to it, those that were back there in the days when we were moving into independence. This is something that was hurriedly done because we were supposed to be moving towards a federation of the West Indies. And when Jamaica bowed out and it became, what did Eric Williams say? 1 from 10 is naught or something of that nature. And when Jamaica bowed out and formed their own independence, we hurriedly wanted to form our own independence and say, look, you see that constitution over there that we really wasn't going to use? We haven't really vetted that properly. Let's hurriedly put that in place. When have we actually gone back to the table and reviewed this document thoroughly? The relationship between Trinidad and Tobago, when have we actually gone back to the table and really reviewed that relationship? Because currently, Tobago is out living and is out moving the THA Act. It is not sufficient for Tobago. Tobago is not going to be able to grow, getting a few dollars on a yearly basis. We cannot build our infrastructure out. We cannot live on that kind of pittance that we get on a yearly basis. And so this type of bacchanal and confusion will continue until we go to the source and go back to where we came from and come forward again and say, look, we went down a wrong road. We took a wrong turn. We cannot just simply continue down this road. We must review our position and put the necessary guardrails and constraints in place in order for this nation to go forward into another 100 years.
Well, Mr. Pickett, we are well over time, but I want to thank you for coming on the show. Your message is received loud and clear, and I agree with more or less just about everything you had to say, but I can't necessarily expand on that any further. So thank you for coming, and hopefully more conversations in the future with you and your organization.
Thank you, gentlemen, and you both have a great day.
You too, Mr. Pickett. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, Talking Points now takes a quick break, and when we return, we'll welcome our second guest for this morning's edition of The Conversation. Stay tuned to the program.
This May, the spectacular event you've been waiting for is coming. May 27th, celebrate amazing North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival. Festival grounds, Blushy Shares. Born here, played here. Tickets available at Crosby's, Extra Foods Endeavour, Shogunus Main Road, Sangre Grande, Arima, Grand Bazaar, Mart's Liquor Mart, Diego Martin, Kenny's Sports Outlets, Athletes by the Park, and WESN.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
The best laptops and tablets are at dbesttoys.com. Get a Gateway 14.1-inch Ultra Slim notebook or an HP 14-inch laptop at the best prices in TNT. Get the Fire 7 tablet for $474. You can also shop the latest Amazon Fire Sticks. Call now at 32-DBEST to order or visit us in-store at Forces flagship MacBean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Free delivery available throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Cash or links on delivery.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit? Yes. What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive. It is not rehabilitative.
We, the police officers, we are professional, and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole, is for all of us in public.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity, from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Welcome back to Talking Points, and thank you for staying with us. Now, often in life, there are surprises that come from all walks, all corners, all angles. And well, this morning I was rather surprised to hear we'd be joined by this guest, because I was like, I think he forgot about us, or he was just tired of us. He just needed a break. But he decided, you know what, I need to go back. Please welcome back to Talking Point Acting ASP Ashraf Ali. Good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. No, I didn't forget you all.
You were just strategically absent at times with difficult questions. Yes. Well, speaking of difficult times, we just were speaking about political language. It's combative, it's divisive. But now there's further implications when wider society uses that type of language, has that type of demeanor, is combative, it does have that strong aggressive energy towards each other. And you're here to speak to us about personal threats against one's life, and, well, threats, sometimes literally when we get vexed with somebody, you might throw out an empty threat, but this day and age, you can't be too sure what is an empty threat and what's a real one.
Exactly, and over the years, you know, the police service would have dealt with persons coming in the station and making threats, disputes, and annoyances, as we would have classified it. And it would have been classified as other matters, not taken consideration of because it was what we call idle threats, you know, persons just having some disputes. But in recent times, you realize that the level of violence in the society, a lot of persons are actually carrying out these threats and taking actions on their own. And these type of things now are classified, and it's an offense under the books. We have a threat is a summary offense, right? So you can't be prosecuted for making threats as a summary offense now under the laws. So that's why when they go to these stations, the officers will take all of these reports now, and they're no longer going to give you a warning as they used to do, or you ask a person to be a warning. They could be investigated, statements taken, and you can be put before the court for issuing threats. You might have a dispute, and you might jump up and say, well, you see, I fed up with you and I will kill you.
I know this may sound rather peculiar, but given how the laws are so sometimes tangled up that we may not fully understand them, what does the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service define a threat as? Okay, so it's not the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service per se, it's the law, all right? And it falls under the assault, it falls under the category of an assault. Right? An assault is sometimes called as psychic assault in the act by which someone intentionally or recklessly cause or apprehend immediate and unlawful personal violence. So simply means that whatever action that you're taking, that person must believe that I can have personal violence. So I know you for a little while, and I know that you are willing and able to carry that threat. Right? That's an assault one time. It is no longer saying.
Well, does it even need to be a situation where I know the person making the threat? What if, you know, it's a passerby, you know, driving through my community or something like that, like an encounter that's not a regular occurrence with somebody I don't know, and they make a threat? Could that also constitute as something that I could report to the police? It
can, but in order for it to be considered in the courts of law, somebody just passing by, I mean, is it considered to be that you consider yourself to be immediate violence? The only time you'll consider yourself to be in immediate violence, or somebody can cause violence to you, is that you have to know that a person has intention of carrying it out, or is capable of carrying it out, and you must have some knowledge of that individual, some interaction, previous interaction with that individual or something to know that, hey, that person would have carried out threats. Right? So we also have the other aspect of it where we had some threats coming out on social media where we had bomb threats.
Mm-hmm.
Now, those are different type of threats that caters for in the other offenses, utilizing telephone messages and emails and things that have to do at a different level of investigation, which is currently being investigated on those levels. Right? So holistically, when you look at it, we say that is our language, you know, that is how we just talk, right? But when you say that is how we talk, while we are talking, you are actually making threats to an individual, and once you feel uncomfortable, once you, the individual, feel that, listen, that Sean can carry it out, right? It is an offense.
No, what you looking so surprised?
Why am I the murderer in this scenario?
No, you don't have to be a murderer. But the reality is that based on the level of violence that we are seeing and the use of guns, threats are no longer considered to be idle. It has to be taken seriously.
No longer just words and plain talk.
It must be taken seriously.
And as much as you say, some people might think it's we language. This is not just done to some extent on the street between people in an argument. You know, I'm sure everybody has heard family members with their parents basically say about their children when the children do something very bad, you know, I'm gonna kill him. You know, it's like, and it's something that goes across cultures, but at the same time, unique to us, we need to understand that as universal as it might seem and as harmless as it might seem in our past experiences, right? Now, is it that you're going to have to try to seriously educate the population? Because ignorance of the law is no excuse, if I remember correctly. So people could unknowingly get charged for this.
And that's why we have our legal clinic, right? That's one of the avenues that we are utilizing in the legal clinic. We have, through our community policing section, we also do counseling and mediation, because persons need to understand the type of language that they're using can, in fact, create an adverse reaction, right? So confrontations, persons when they're having confrontation and disputes, the more you become more aggressive, is the more the confrontation becomes the aggressor, and you always have more conflict.
I'm curious, and you know, forgive me if I'm being stupid here, because I myself am not entirely sure. One, is there in order for somebody to make a report to the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, do they have to be of a certain age? And two, could anybody of any age group report whether or not they feel as though they were threatened? In some instances, I mean, yes, okay, you might want to talk to your parents or whatnot, but is there any sort of restriction, not restrictions, but limitations?
No, there's no limitation on age to make a report. If the person is a minor, must be accompanied by someone, right? The person, that child or the minor will be interviewed in the presence of the individual as to what, on what was the situation.
And a minor is considered 18 and younger, or 16?
Well, under the age of 18.
I assume that if the threat or the perceived threat is apparent, that might work under different laws and be dealt by the Child Protection Unit.
Child Protection Unit will consider that, because there are specific offenses when it comes to parents. And
this specific offense is more if a child is threatened by someone on the street or someone in a different capacity than domestic abuse.
And we look at it in schools. We consider it to be bullying. Bullying is threat. Bullying is an assault.
So bullying could reach this far.
Because the language of bullying, you're putting that individual or you're putting another child under fear. And just by saying, hey, give me your money today, right? You're threatening that individual to hand over your money and put them under fear and the bullying. So bullying in fact, is a threat and an assault also on that individual.
We might be getting a bit technical here.
It is.
Because it sounds very technical, because now I'm wondering if the threat is the demand, or if the threat is the repercussions if you do not follow my demand.
Once you are put under fear, once you believe that you are, how in any law would they say that you apprehend someone's fear? So I am fearful. Why did I hand over the money, my lunch money to you? Because I'm fearful that you will do something to me. Well, and that is where we have to understand in the whole context of threats. We take threats only for threats for life. And when it reach a domestic violence situation and then the issue of threats come up. But during the course of our conversation and our lives, in every different sphere, we use the type of language, and I'm using the word, I want to quote you, the colorful language that is so violent in our, the language is so violent that it's so common now that you're using it. And not understanding that it is an offense on our law.
I just thought of a very ironic scenario, but I'll save that. I do want to ask though, say somebody threatens me, and I threaten them back. Could both of us be charged? Or?
You can, both of you will be charged.
A threat is a threat.
And quickly before the break, what are the potential penalties? We won't go through the entire spectrum, but say for threat against us, a direct threat against one's life, I believe that he's not just going to injure me, but kill me. What could be the full extent of the penalties for something like this?
Unfortunately, those are some of the things that need to be considered, because this is very, very... Every person who unlawfully assaults or beats another person upon complaint on behalf the party aggrieved is liable to a fine of $400 or imprisonment for 3 months. Understanding the level of violence in the society, these penalties does not equate.
Very quickly, I know you said that how the Trans-Tobago Police Service takes these threats very seriously and ensure that it will be investigated. Once reported to the Trans-Tobago Police Station. Any updates as per the investigations for the school bomb threats?
It's still being investigated by the cyber unit. Persons might want to say that we are taking too long, but when you're going through email situations, it has to be very meticulous, and the nature of... So just when you look at how the emails were sent, it was sent simultaneously to the different schools. At service, right? Anybody could understand that there are some elements of a cyber attack that has to be investigated thoroughly, because at the end of the day, if something of that happens from a school environment, what is the extent from a national security perspective?
I've been asking myself that
So it's bigger. So I guess we want to do a little more in depth into it.
Sure. Well, Acting ASP Ashraf Ali, thanks for being with us. I know you'll be with us after the news as well, which are talking point in our brace for. We'll be right back after this, and we'll open up the phone lines. Stay tuned.
Here's your WESN News on the Hour. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Police investigate death of a 4-week-old baby. TTBS continues investigation into schools bomb threats. Regionally, 2 die in Barbados house fire, and internationally, over 50 dead, hundreds hospitalized, and thousands displaced by ethnic violence in India. Now for the details. Police are investigating the circumstances surrounding the death of a baby who was found unresponsive at his home. 4-week-old Jaden Mohammed was found by his parents, a 23-year-old laborer, and his 18-year-old girlfriend at their Karatal home after being fed. The baby was rushed to the hospital where he was pronounced dead. TTPS Inspector Michelle Lewis gave an update on the recent mass bomb threats at schools across the nation. She spoke via state media on the issue. Inspector Lewis warned persons from this type of behavior and said that this could see several charges being laid for the single offense.
I really want to urge persons, especially, but generally, to desist from making threats to another person, whether it is virtually, whether it is in person or otherwise. And so even though you have this piece of legislation, when you look at other pieces of legislation that supports any other act that you will do, you realize that the offense mightn't be just this, or the penalty may not just be this, because you can be charged for a series of offenses.
In regional developments now, 2 people are suspected to have died in an early morning house fire at Headings Development, St. Philip, Barbados. Chief Fire Officer Errol Maynard told Barbados Today that the call about the fire came in on Monday morning at 4:35. When officers reached the scene, neighbors reported that some individuals were unaccounted for. After officers brought the fire under control, they discovered what appeared to be human remains in the structure. Investigations are continuing. In international news now, ethnic violence in the Indian state of Manipur has killed more than 50 people, leaving hundreds hospitalized and displacing 23,000, according to hospital officials and the Indian Army. At least 55 people have been left dead and a further 260 hospitalized since violence broke out between members of two ethnic groups earlier this week. The Indian military, meanwhile, said that 23,000 civilians had fled the fighting, with displaced people being housed in military bases and garrisons in the state. Well, that was your news of the hour on WESN. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for watching.
Artists you'll meet. The sounds will astonish you. Superb voices, new artists, simply refreshing. Celebrate amazing. May 27th, North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival. Festival grounds Blanchisseuse. Born here, played here. Tickets available at Crosby's, Extra Foods Endeavour, Shogunus Main Road, Sangre Grande, Arima, Grand Bazaar, Mart's Liquor Mart, Diego Martin, Kenny's Sports Outlets, Athletes by the Park, and WESN.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Thank you for staying with us here on Talking Point. Ladies and gentlemen, it's now time to open up the phone lines to give you, the viewer, the opportunity to share with us your thoughts and opinions. Acting ASP Ashraf Ali is back with us, finally, after so long. Good to see you. And he's also open and willing to take your questions. If you need any clarification on anything, he'll do his best to answer your questions. But the number should be on your screen. Call in and join us on Talking Point this morning. As always, let me remind you, please be concise with your points. Be respectful of others. We all want to hear each other's opinions, but we ask that you always be respectful. And please, please mute your television before calling into the program. Acting ASP Ashraf Ali. The situation in Trinidad and Tobago, one might say that's threats, as you would have mentioned, are minor now compared to the actions of what is taking place. Although, arguably, what we might not understand is that threats would have led to some of these things taking place. Arguments behind closed doors before a gun was fired and everybody's saying, well, murders and murders and murders. Behind closed doors is an entirely different story.
Exactly, and just to add that threats can also be dealt with civilly, from a civil perspective as well as a criminal perspective. So the police will deal with it criminally, but you can also put the person, an individual, through the court and take civil action against that individual.
Do you think there's, let me ask a question before taking this. Well, do you think there's fear of people wanting to report threats to the police out of what might come out of police getting involved? Do they think that they're fearful of the repercussions for going to the police? Think about that, because some have suggested that. Call on the line with us from El Socorro. Good morning. Hello, good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, the first topic that was discussed this morning, I would like to comment on it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we speak about the bacchanal politics that we see in today, but people must remember, right, the gentleman made a statement, I think it was Mr. Piggott, that public is suffering for this and that. But we must never forget that this thing started, right? We had Dr. Joe on the radio, which was carrying on a good program. Up came Mr. Gladiator, Ricardo Welch. Introduced a new system, a radio program, a new system that the public grasped onto, the bacchanal and the comments and the calling people nasty names and so on. And up come the UNC, who used vanilla and topping to further it with something very nasty, which rub off into the parliament. That was the accusation against Mr. Rowley and his family life and so on and so on and so on. Whether it's true or not, I'm showing you where the bacchanal started. And after that, he had, during that period, we had Mr. Pandey saying he must sleep with the devil, he will sleep with the devil to get into power and so on and so on. And there this thing stepped into the parliament. The public, people used to tune into Ricardo Welch program and grasp it up like if it's food. That is the public are talking about it. So when people want to divorce the public from encouraging this type of behavior, we must be careful of what we say, and we must go back in history to see where all the dirtiness started, and then it entered into parliament. Right? We must never forget that. Right? So, when Mr. Piggott said that the public is suffering because of that and whatnot, the public encouraged the whole thing, because the public buy into that from early o'clock. And Ricardo Welch had realized from the days of the NAR, if you remember when Mr. Robinson digged the Deepwater Harbor in Tobago, the PNM supporters went and spread a rumor that Tobago will sink and so on. So Ricardo Welch, realizing the public like this kind of bacchanal, he capitalized on it and the public grasped onto it. And this is where the nasty politics step in, the adversarial politics step into parliament. Try and remember that, please, sir.
Thank you very much, Cole. Have a good day.
Well, one thing though, just to add, just don't forget Mr. Piggott did say that ratings, this sort of bacchanal does seem to be driving media ratings across news networks around the world, which is, well, to some extent, because at least in North America, in America, those ratings are bottoming out for the traditional cable news stations. But that therein lies the catch-22 for media houses. Follow the trend, join in on the bacchanal, get the ratings, but then now you kind of lose a little bit of your integrity and objectivity when you do. So it is what it is. But yes, actually that would have been a question that I was wondering. To what extent is it the politicians leading the charge, or to what extent is it the voters and the politicians just responding? A question my co-host did ask Mr. Piggott, but one that could be debated much further.
Extensively, yes. Acting ESP, your thoughts on reporting to the public?
Now, the issue with reporting the public, the confidence in the public as it relates to if the police officers can treat with those matters. Now, persons believe that when you report a dispute or a threat to the police has to find a solution for that. The police don't come up with a solution, cannot stop or cannot prevent the threat or dispute that you are having to finish. They will investigate, and if the offense has been committed, persons will be charged. So persons will believe that, okay, if I report it to the police will fix the problem. But the problem is still there because it's under dispute, and as a result of a dispute, threats came out of the dispute, but the dispute's still there.
Well, I think my co-host might have been going for a slightly different angle, but we do have a caller from Pity Valley. Good morning, caller.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning, Sean and Keaton and the officer there.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Sean and Keaton, I find it very ironic this morning that Miss Kamala, Miss Bissessa, is the one to criticize the president's husband and his brother by the appointment of Silk. This is the same Miss Bissessa give her own self Silk as Prime Minister. Let me tell you the problem in this country with this. It will always continue. We need constitutional reform. Mr. Pandey is talking about it now, but when he was in power, he did nothing about it, but he's talking about it now. The problem is any government in power with these old laws, this law about with the silk law is since 1964. When you are in power, and both sides know it, when they are in power, they could use these laws and get away with it. Both sides. We have to change these laws, constitutional reform. Otherwise, this side will say you do it, the other side will say do it, they do it. And the politicians know it. They have to change the law. Same thing like the president appointment. We need constitutional reform to stop all this back and forth and thing and finger. Because Ms. Kamala says, I have no ground in saying this about silk. Have a nice day, guys.
Have a good day. Thank you very much for your contribution. I believe we have another call on the line with us. All right, we lost that caller, so we do apologize.
I just want to comment on, we keep on talking about constitutional reform, but I don't think it's constitutional reform alone. When you look at the laws of Trinidad and Tobago, there are laws that covers almost everything that you can think about committed in Trinidad. We need a review of the laws, because when you look at some of the penalties for those laws, when you look at some of the laws, whether or not it makes sense now in 2023,
yes,
as opposed to when it was established, it makes no sense.
There are some offences that just don't make sense to enforce.
So
right?
it's about reviewing those laws and bringing them up to standard to our current environment.
Well, I think both are probably valid, but we do have a caller from Dabity. So before I expand on that, good morning, caller.
A very pleasant morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Yes, Ashraf, a pleasant morning to you.
Thank you, sir.
I'll be very short and to the point, and my question is to ASP Ashraf. Nice to have you back, ASP. ASP Ashraf, I'm asking you, why is it that police officers continue to do the wrong thing? I mean, you look at the processes, that the activity that took place in Barbados, and as we go back historically, I mean, you see on the different social media clippings, they go on a scene in the school or in a community, a strength of 1-1 or 1-2, and they overpower, their lives are endangered. I want to know why it is the police can't just get a grasp on crime. I have been offering my services pro bono, my batches, and there's a bunch of retirees outside there in all the services want to assist with the crime reduction in Trinidad and Tobago. You, neither your commissioner nor executive, is paying no attention to additional resources or manpower. What I can't understand what is the reason why it is you're getting assistance and you're not taking the assistance. This thing is reaching much further than an epidemic here in Trinidad, and people are really scared for their life. You'll have a nice day, and whoever you report to, please report clearly as to what I'm saying this morning. My name is Blackman. Thank you very much, and you'll have a nice day.
Thank you very much, sir. Do have a good day.
Well, I think Mr. Blackman and many of the retired police officers out there still willing to give of their services, some of them free of charge. Unfortunately, I am not in a position to determine how those services could be rendered to the police service. The executive has to make a decision how they could bring them on board and to what extent. I know there are a lot of police officers, retired police officers, who still give of their services through the police youth clubs, through community groups. But I understand from what I'm getting from Mr. Blackman, it is not about that. It is a little more strategic in what he wants to bring forward. So I could tell Mr. Blackman, there is a Retirees Association that have, I hope that you are part of the Retirees Association. They would have engaged the executive of Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, and some of the retirees have been brought aboard to give some additional advice. So my advice to you is to communicate with the Retirees Association, express your views from them, and they can bring it up to the Commissioner of Police.
We have a caller on the line with us from San Fernando. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I want to answer or say, based on the comment by Davide, I want to say this. The decision to take help from citizens that have the wherewithal or are willing to assist in this situation of crime, that decision is a political decision. And I'm saying that, and let me go back, the police service hierarchy can enlist that helper. However, they may see it as a failure on their part that they have to bring in people who have retired and no longer in the services to assist them with this crime. So it's a question of pride and turf. That is how I see it. It is a shame that you have people that are willing to come and assist the state in what I also think is out of control criminal activity in Trinidad and Tobago, and that is being refused by the state in whatever form, the Prime Minister, the National Security Minister, the police service hierarchy. And it is a shame that is taking place. Thank you.
Thank you very much, caller, for your contribution.
It's a shame because, in theory, if it's not your fault, if it's external factors that are difficult for you to control, then taking outside help is not necessarily an admission of failure.
Well, I think it's a very good point from the aspect that there are those who are willing to help or wanting to help, and yet they feel as though they can't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a situation where you see something, and even what does the police service say? If you see something, say something, don't necessarily do something, but always try and prevent the situation. And that's the thing, people are wanting to get more and more involved. So it is an idea that you can take towards your seniors, because it's not a decision for you to make.
Yes.
And it's nothing that you can really comment on or speak much further to, but it is something that you can raise.
Like I always say, and I'll reiterate, is that those individuals who are willing to lend their assistance, they need to come forward.
But according to Mr. Blackman himself, well as others,
he is.
have come
So
forward.
like I said, I don't know at what avenue he did.
Yeah.
Right. But I was advising if it is that to that extent, he can engage the executive from that perspective, right? Mm-hmm. Because the retirees association and we don't want to look at it this way. Persons who are retired from the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service are not retired from everything else. They are retired from a job. They have all the experience and knowledge, 30 plus years in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service that can bring value back to
So is it more for community-based policing?
It could be. It all depends on the level of experience they had within the police service.
That's a good point. We have a caller from Shilonas. Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, sir.
It's good to get on. I thought you all had blocked my line.
Never.
We would not do that. We block no lines here. I don't even think we can, actually.
Why not?
What we've now been told that one of our phone lines might be giving some trouble again. So that's just...
One almost ain't working at all.
Yeah, basically. It's like every other month one isn't working.
Oh God, it's TSTT, come on. We used to this by now.
Anyway, Mr. Farley and Tobago must realize that Dr. Rowley is the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. And to tell Dr. Rowley to stay out of Tobago business, he don't understand the fundamentals of politics in Trinidad. You had a caller last week who pointed out that with all the fancy names, the Tobago House of Assembly is still a local government agency.
Mm-hmm.
And for that, they're required to carry out central government policy. Yes, they can make policy, but the policy cannot conflict with central government policy. It must be in harmony with the policy. Any questions, gentlemen?
No. Yes, I have one
okay.
question. You said that the Prime Minister, he is that of Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes.
Do you think that it was correct or justified in the Prime Minister on a political platform saying that he does not get involved in the business of Tobago?
He will not, well, he will not get involved in the business of Tobago, but he has a role to do. And what Farley said, he must be out. And I know what I mean by the business of Tobago. The business of Tobago is part of the business of Trinidad and Tobago.
So
that's the problem with local government. We seem to forget why we have local government. I told you all a couple of months ago. Local government was put in there to carry out certain central government functions. Right? That they wanted to do at a local level. And they will give a mechanism for financing this, which the government have destroyed. Just that they will collect the money and give them it is nonsense. Right? Because all investigations have shown that the central government is very poor at collecting revenue. But the local government had a very good record of collecting revenue for the simple reason that they was going to get it and collect it. And there's a lot of reasons for it. When the people do not get the service, they can go to the people who they pay.
All right, Professor, well, thank you very much for your contribution.
Thank you very much.
Good hearing from you.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
I think that also might be the issue that has it's reflected over the last couple of days, the limited calls, simply because one of our phone lines is giving issues. It's not completely down, but it's giving quite a bit of trouble. We have been in contact with TSTT. We're hoping to get it resolved because they've been here multiple times. They've sent multiple crews.
Just last week, if not Monday. I can't remember if it was yesterday or last week, late last week. Somebody was here.
Honorable Minister Marvin Gonzalez, I think we're going to have to welcome you back to WSN for a different...
We need to hear about the other utilities, like telecommunications, not just WASA.
Anyway, that's it for phone calls. Thank you very much to all the callers who did get through this morning. We again once more apologize for the limited calls simply due to the issues with our phone lines. But to all their contributions and questions, thank you. Acting ASP Ashraf Ali, it's good seeing you again, sir, after so long.
It's a pleasure, and Sean, please don't threaten Keaton anymore.
Me? When did I do this?
On a regular basis.
When did
Just make note that the way that you gesticulate towards him, it is also considered to be a threat. Your actions also.
Exactly.
Right?
I feel...
And I do not retaliate. That's a good thing.
You know what? I feel threatened right now. Right? I feel threatened right now. I am surrounded by this negative energy directed at me.
No, Sean, that's just your aura. So don't blame it on anybody else, you know?
No, I can tell the difference.
It's another day in paradise.
It's not pessimism.
It's an interesting day in paradise, right? Acting ASP Ashraf Ali, good seeing you again. So keep well, take care, and all the best.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you for your continued service. Sean Michael Small, well, I hope you have a good day.
Well, I hope so too. Just a couple of observations that we can't get into, but one thing though, with regards to getting retirees to help, there are questions about the practical implementation of it. Because I doubt you will have extensive practices with regards to bringing back retirees to do substantial rules in the TTPS.
They do, just to add, they do. There are officers who came back into the police academy based on the investigative skills and
I'm thinking more substantial than even
yeah,
that.
no, see, you have to look at it in the context of the skills that the officers acquired over the years,
right,
and the need for these officers in particular areas. So it's a very valuable contribution that they can bring to the police service, but it just cannot be that because I feel I could tell you what to do, I come back. It has to be in keeping with what the strategic goal and how we can work towards it.
Yeah, all of that is complex because the rank structure and the retaining retirees and their former rank, it's not so simple. But that's for other people to work out, you know. I'm just pointing out the difficulties. And lastly, I did have this thought from the professor's call, and I did wonder, Keaton, if when we get local government reform, that's going to put in more executives at the local government levels, similar to THA model, I do wonder if that in some way indirectly will kind of water down the uniqueness and therefore the importance, the singular importance of the THA being that other executive body in the nation. Now they will just be one of many, and I wonder if that will impact to some extent the drive for autonomy.
Well, hold on to that thought, because we don't have time to get
I know,
into
right?
that.
It was just a thought.
But, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Talking Points and Keaton Shaw. Just reminding you, today is a good day to have a good day. Yes, make it a great one. And tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, you can join us again for more Talking Points here on WESN Content Capsule. But until then, bye.
WESN. North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival. Safe and sound, that's how we'll get you to the biggest North Coast Jazz ever. No hassle and no worries. Park your ride at the Queen's Park Savannah, hop on board a safe and secure shuttle with your $100 return fee, and that's it. Service begins at 10 a.m. through 1 p.m. and returns from festival grounds from 7 p.m. Park and ride, a $100 return fee, first come, first go shuttle service to festival grounds Blashy shares. No hassle and no worries. North Coast Jazz, May 27th. Born here, played here. Tickets available at Crosby's, Extra Foods Endeavour, Shogunas Main Road, Sangre Grande, Arima, Grand Bazaar, Mart's Liquor Mart, Diego Martin, Kenny's Sports Outlets, Athletes by the Park, and WESN.
The perfect mix of news, current affairs, talk, debate, mature discussions, comedy and sports. Only at WESN, the content capital.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andy.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on the